This is Smiles TV. Welcome to Smiles Television Talk Show. I'm your host, Stephanie Anthony Miles, and thank you for tuning in to another broadcast. We have a delightful show for you today. First, we'll be talking with Mrs. Devin Moody Graham, who's an international business strategist. And second, in the second half of our broadcast, we'll be talking with Dr. Des. Yes, our resident psychologist is back. What's on your mind with Dr. Des? Dr. Des helps to dispel mental health myths, especially in the African American community. Remember, Jesus Christ was born of a virgin. He was crucified and buried, and he rose on the third day. Confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord. Believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, and thou shalt be saved. Stay tuned for more Smiles. Mrs. Devin Moody Graham is an international business development strategist. She's a partnership creator, a work-life balance expert, and she's also called a CEO mom. Devin Moody Graham shares and encourages entrepreneurs. This young lady talks about capital, revenue, strategy, business consulting, and so much more. Let's meet Mrs. Devin Moody Graham. Devin, thank you for coming to Smiles Television. How are you?
I'm great. Anxious, obviously. Thank you for having me.
You know, it's been a while since we've seen each other. We've been talking on the phone, but it is so good to see you.
You too.
Devin, you are doing a lot, and you're a busy lady. I just want to know how you do it, first of all.
You know what? I'm doing really well. Despite, of course, the world being turned upside down these last few years, it's actually been good for me personally because I've had to take a break, really prioritizing my personal life and in business. And I'm on an upward trend that's just, it's really blowing my mind.
Wow, and you know, it's blowing other people's minds too because you have so many different irons in the fire, but you get it done, and that's what has always surprised me. Devin and I met as volunteers in service to America through AmeriCorps. We really didn't meet there, but we worked together because you're a good friend with my niece, Jocelyn Sandifer, attorney Jocelyn Sandifer. So tell us now, Devin, what are you doing now?
So that's a huge question, but right now I am really focusing on making a bigger impact and still keeping my time. So even though I have so many projects going on both domestically and internationally, I actually have more time to spend with family. So I launched a new business since the last time we spoke. So CEO Mom Empire is my business strategy company, and it's really grown. Even though it's a more narrow focus, it's grown a lot internationally, from working with businesses that want to expand in Paris to working with women-owned businesses here that want to clarify their message, get their information out to the public, and really make a big impact. Since then, I also started a mobile laundry service, which is my tinkering with tech. It is called Bubble Mate. It's something that I wanted to do, I tell people, 2 children ago. And so now that's finally come to life, very new. And I started a fashion line, Libra Chic Fashion Geek, which is really my way to be in the fashion world because my undergraduate was in retail marketing and I've always been there. But more so creating a platform, and I can tell you more about that later, platform for other designers and people.
Oh, I told you, I knew you were busy. I didn't realize how much so, though. Let me ask you this. What motivates you?
Sometimes it might sound corny or you might think that people say the same thing, but really impacting people's lives. And it's always been that, just coming from a family of entrepreneurs, even stemming back to my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, but really helping others to do what they love, because I truly believe that if people are doing what they love, we'll have a kinder world. People will be nicer to one another because they're not walking around miserable, you know, always doing things that they don't want to do. So I do that through entrepreneurship training and empowerment. And so that's what I would say, really inspiring others to have better lives, personal and business, is what motivates me. And when I can help other people get more time back within their lives while being business owners or while growing in their career, I feel like I've done what I'm supposed to do.
So you've told us what motivates you, but I'm sure you're not motivated every day, 24/7. But knowing you, you might be. But just in case you're not, when you find yourself down or you find yourself wanting to push a little harder and you just are tired, how do you get that energy back?
When I started stopping, when I felt like I needed to recharge, that's when I was able to be more productive. I was nicer. I wasn't fussing. I wasn't aggravated. So taking that time for yourself, listening to my body has really helped me to be more productive. It's helped me to be better to myself. That's something that I've been focusing on, because if I don't have anything to give myself, then I definitely don't have anything to give anybody else. And I used to have that backwards, which so many people do. We would pour everything out and have nothing left for ourselves, and then you're resentful, but nobody made you do it.
Right, right.
So I really take more time for myself unapologetically, and that's really a word of mine now. I'm unapologetic about a lot of things that I do because I have to take care of me first before I can be a good wife, mother, daughter, sister.
Let's talk about your family. Tell us about your husband and your children.
So, oh my goodness. So 10 years married, definitely in a place of transitioning, both of us looking at ways to grow in our careers, ways to get more of our time back while working in our passions. My husband's been in education for close to 15 years now on the behavior sector. So that's a lot of his time motivating young people, and then he's been coaching for almost 20 years. So both little league teams, high school teams, there's really been a big part. So we always have a lot of kids around outside of our own.
You know what I used to love about you? You would bring your daughter sometimes to different events,
Yes.
almost like training her in that way. So are your kids also interested in being an entrepreneur?
They are. Actually, about a month ago, my 9-year-old brought me her business plan, because just like I teach other people classes and ask my clients, you know, if they're coming to me with, I want to do this, I give them homework. So when she says she wants to do something, she has to write down on paper what she wants to do, how she wants to do it, and what she needs from me. And she literally wrote down a business plan of a new business that she wanted to start. And I was so impressed.
That is excellent.
Because my son, who has a business, love him, obviously, he still has not written down his business plan. He tells me and texts me, but the fact that my 9-year-old wrote it down on paper, that really impressed me. And she told me just 2 weeks ago that she wanted to have stores all around the world.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, she did.
Oh,
So.
wow. Well, let me ask you this, Devin, because with all of the family activities that you're engaged in, you travel. And one of the most recent places that I read that you had been is to Paris. Tell us how that happened.
Wow. Okay. So if we back up about, let's say 4 years. So my youngest is 3. And so when I was pregnant with her, really some things that I had been thinking about since I was a kid really started to come to the surface. So I knew it was time to do it. I've traveled to Europe before, traveled to Paris for fun. But I've always wanted to work internationally. I've always wanted to have impact internationally. And what happened was I literally, social media, got onto Instagram. I started searching for like Paris moms, Black in Paris, Black Paris moms. I literally used those hashtags, right, until I came across the profile of a woman who had just an infectious smile. And I kid you not, I said, well, she won't tell me off. You know, she looks nice enough that if I inbox her and ask her this question, she won't. And sure enough, we're like family today.
Wow.
I sent the message. We spoke over Google Meets, and then we spoke on WhatsApp. And her name is Crystal Petit. She's originally from Georgia. Graduated from Spelman and ended up going to Paris for Dijon, France for internship. And from there, she ended up meeting her now husband, having kids, been over there 20 plus years. And I basically said, hi, you know, I see what you're doing. It's great. I see that you're also a mom. I'm a mom too. And I am thinking about hosting a conference in Paris next year. Do you think there's any way that you can assist me with getting this going? And she said yes.
Wow.
She said yes. And so I I am a firm believer that a closed mouth don't get fed.
That's right, and you have not because you asked.
Right,
Not.
but I love it. No one will know what you want or need unless you ask them. And so I always ask for what I want now, like with no qualms. They can only say no, then I'll ask again or different or go ask someone else, you know? So there's no way to lose around asking. So from there, I've connected with the Black Paris community, and it's been amazing. People from all over the world. I met so many Black expats. Actually, my last trip, I met someone from East St. Louis who's been over there, I think, since the 90s.
Wow.
Blew my mind. She's been amazing as well. So going back to this last trip, Josephine Baker, I wrote a report about her in middle school. And I've always just liked Paris. I took French in high school. And when I found out that they were going to be honoring her at the Pantheon, I was so excited, which they announced early last year. Josephine Baker, who is from St. Louis, who actually grew up in the Mill Creek area, where my dad grew up in the Mill Creek area like 30 years later. But and that for that area, that's where the Arch is. I mean, it no longer exists. And she was the first Black woman, the first foreign-born, and the first entertainer to be honored in this way. So it was a huge honor. I was able to meet some of her family members. I helped with planning the event that was there, executing the event that was there with a group of amazing people. And it was really life-changing. I held my first, not my first event there, but held a meet and greet that caught the attention of the people who were organizing, and they asked if that could be a part of their series of events that were going to be taking place to honor Madam Josephine. And it blew me away again. And for my event, I actually have someone who's been over there doing events and things forever. I had to record him because when he said it, I said, I gotta record you. It has to be real. He said that out of all the years, 20 plus years that he's been in Paris, that I brought out the who's who of Black Paris to my event, and he's never seen all of them in the room at the same time.
Wow.
Blew my mind. So God is really blessing. 2 years ago, God spoke to me about The Prayer of Jabez, which is a book that I had going off to college, and I still have that book. And it just really reminded me that when you pray that prayer, you got to be ready to receive it, you know, because you have to be prepped and ready, because God is really enlarging my territory, and I still don't even know next steps. I just walk when the doors open.
Wow, that is such a remarkable story. And speaking of next steps, you're going to be a regular on Smiles TV.
Yes.
Debbie Moody Graham, yes, she is, and you're going to have a segment called Empire Talks with Debbie Moody Graham. First of all, how did you come up with the name Empire Talks, and what are we to look forward to seeing?
Oh my goodness. So the word empire is such a loaded term. Of course, you can think about dynasties and legacies, and that's really what came from. So my company, one of my newest companies named CEO Mom Empire, of course, created CEO Mom to empower women who are mothers who may feel like they can't do both, with both pursuing their dreams and being a mother. And the empire part is it brings on legacy. And so my goal with the show is to help people talk through how they're impacting both their personal lives and how they're creating a legacy for others. So I hope to bring on people both in person and maybe even streaming some people from Paris, but talking about how they're doing and living in their truths while building a legacy for themselves and their families.
Devin, we just love you, and you're doing so many excellent things. If you had to encourage any youth who are interested in becoming entrepreneurs, what would you tell them in closing?
In closing, I would say study to show yourself approved, because if anything that you want to do, you have to put time into it. You can't just say, I want a business, or you can't just say, I want a YouTube channel, or I want good grades. You have to study. You have to prepare. Find people who are doing what you want to do and actually ask them questions. Move forward in that. So I'm a firm believer of not just having idle words. If you don't execute, they're just lingering, you know? And so if it's something that you want, you should literally focus on how to get to the next level. So get out of your phones if you're not researching. Talk to people who are doing what it is that you want to do, and move forward.
Thank you so much, Devin Moody Graham. And we are looking forward to Empire Talks with Devin Moody Graham. Don't go away. We'll be right back with What's on Your Mind with Dr. Des.
Dr. Desiree Holmes, the Smiles TV resident psychologist, is back. The segment of What's on Your Mind with Dr. Des brings several guests to the platform in an effort to dispel mental health myths and stigmas. Dr. Des' wealthy knowledge includes serving as the former behavioral health director at Touche Regional Hospital, clinical psychologist, community activist, educator, trainer, entrepreneur, and most of all, Dr. Des emphasizes that she is a child of God. The Smiles TV production of What's on Your Mind with Dr. Des will help you enhance your entire being, inside and out.
Welcome back to Smiles TV, and you've just heard a lot about our guest, Dr. Desiree Holmes. Dr. Des, what's on your mind?
Lots. I got a lot on my mind. Let's start.
It has been such a while since we've sat together and talked.
I know.
How have you been?
I'm well. Getting through this pandemic, but I'm well. God is good.
What have you been working on since 2020? I think is the last time that we actually did a news broadcast.
Right. I have been working with a lot of churches, bishops, pastors, clergy from around the country.
You have a tendency of answering questions before I get to them. I was going to ask you, are you still dealing with churches as well?
I am. And so, okay, so very briefly, I was just ahead of my time. I was trying to work with churches back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, 1998, 99, 2000. And at that time, churches weren't interested in hearing about mental health. They weren't interested in somebody coming in and trying to, work with them and educate them on mental health and what to look for and this and that and the other. But when that pandemic hit, my phone never stopped ringing. I was getting phone calls, I was getting text messages, I was getting emails. And so, I was doing prayer lines, I was doing webinars, seminars, and still am. So God really, really highlighted that. And so I've had an amazing opportunity to really bridge the gap between scriptural, the Word of God, and mental health. People think that if you are a believer, you can only pray, read your word, and believe, but then not go see a mental health professional. Or if you go see a mental health professional, then somehow, praying about it and still seeking the word of God about it somehow throws people off. And so what I do, I come in and I say, it's not an either or, it is an and. It's an and. And so from that message, it has been amazing.
You have just really laid out some great ideas for our public, because I agree with you. God has given us doctors.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong
That's right.
with seeing a doctor.
That's right.
As we said before, we go to the doctor for diabetes, for cancer, for whatever the issues may be.
That's right.
But when it comes to mental health issues, we tend to shy away. If you will, remind our audience of what's on your mind with Dr. Des is all about.
What's on your mind with Dr. Des is completely about educating. It's psychoeducation, right? In the community, specifically in the African American community. There are so many stigmas out there. There's so many half-truths, untruths, just downright lies. And we absolutely have to dispel this myth about being crazy if you do have a mental health issue. We have to dispel this myth that if you are diagnosed that you can't lead or live a productive life, that you can't hold a job, you can't be married, you can't have a family, you can't raise children. All of these things, they're not true. But what happens is, particularly in the African American community, because we hold these things so true, so by the time they do go see a mental health professional, like everything else, it's always on the extreme end. And so then it does make it a little bit more challenging. It does make it a little bit more difficult for somebody to get back to baseline. But when you seek professional care, whether it's through a psychologist, a psychiatrist, that's the person who dispenses medications. In the state of Illinois, psychologists can also, with a postgraduate degree, they can also dispense meds, whether it's through a psychiatric nurse practitioner, a licensed clinical social worker, a therapist, whomever.
you can get the help that you need and get your life back on track. But if you are waiting years and years and years and years of neglect, it's like anything else. It's the difference between, having cancer at stage 1 versus having cancer at stage 4.
Wow, those are excellent points. My mind right now goes to back to the pandemic, and considering that we have trouble going to mental health providers on a regular basis, it appears that there have been more mental health issues during this pandemic than ever. Are people coming in now, or are they more willing, or are they still as hesitant as before?
Well, so definitely there have been major increases. Domestic violence, intimate partner violence. It used to be called domestic violence, but now it's intimate partner violence. Skyrocketed, right? Child abuse and neglect, skyrocketed. There is a new study that just came out to where poverty and among children, right? And where you talk about food. And so, not having enough food because schools have been closed, and so lunches. And so for some children and some families, school lunches were the only lunches that they were able to get hold of. So I think school districts really rose to the occasion with that because they got those lunches out there. They provided those lunches. So I think schools did an amazing job, and I think they've done really, really well with trying to meet that need. But certainly you see suicide. You see the increase of suicide has skyrocketed. Why? Because that feeling of loneliness and being withdrawn and distancing, social distancing, particularly for people who are already struggling anyway, where you may have introverts, right? So them then being distant, there was a period of time to where you really couldn't travel. I know even for me, my family is back in New Jersey, and I had to really sit that out. My mom got COVID, and I couldn't go home to go see her. Those borders, those states bordering on the state of New Jersey, they weren't playing with this thing. So, it was quite difficult. So we definitely see increases, but here's the good news. Telehealth. You can call. There are options. You don't have to go in and see anybody. You can do Zoom if you have the capability to do Zoom. So telehealth has really, really come on board. And telehealth has been around for quite some time now. So it's not new technology, but it's technology now that's being used in such a way to where the accessibility to people. And so people can really, really tap into that. So you do not have to go in. And some people have really taken advantage of that. So you can sit right in your living room, your kitchen table, your bedroom, and you can still be able to speak and talk with a mental health professional.
If you had to encourage others to navigate through this pandemic a little better, mentally and emotionally, what would you tell them?
One of the things and I've spent a lot of time when I was working with, churches and helping their congregations to understand, we have got to come off of social media. We have to be able to turn the news off. You have to step away from that. It was getting to the point to where people were becoming so anxious and fearful, and we're inundated. We have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. That's a lot of information. At any given time, it's at the touch of your fingertips. Swipe. It's there. So you have to be able to take a break from it. You have to give your mind, your spirit, your body a break from that. You also have to tell people when people want to come to you and they want to complain or they want to gripe and they want to vent, it's okay. Here's a whole sentence. No.
I like that. Just simply no.
No.
Right.
Give them the hand, throw the hand up and say, not today. You just had your guest on here, Ms. Devin.
Right.
And she was just saying that you've got to take care of yourself. And I am in full support of that. You must put yourself first. Take care of yourself. Your psycho-social, emotional, spiritual health is very, very important because if your mind is not together, nothing else is going to be together. So you have to take care of your mental health. And when you take care of your mental health, then you can go ahead and you can take care of your body. So learn to say no tune out, tune off, meditate, give yourself some downtime. Aromatherapy is always good. Nice, hot, soothing baths are good. Some nice hot tea. Go for a nice brisk walk. I actually like the cold weather because I like the briskness of it. So take some walks. Stay in touch with people, but again, stay away from negative conversation. So if the person wants to be negative, get off the phone.
No.
Have
to go
it's
there.
a full sentence. No.
So what can our audience expect in future broadcasts with What's on Your Mind with Dr. Des?
Oh, wow. They can expect a whole lot. So, even before we had different guests on, we had a lot of different people coming on that really talked about mental health, but really want to expand that, right? Because now it's really understanding that, again, we're having that spirit, soul, and body connection. It's really, really about connecting the spirit. So the spirit, man, woman, right? And so that relationship, that spiritual relationship that they have with themselves, that spiritual relationship that they have with God, the spiritual relationship that they have with earth itself, right? So it's about the spirit. And so it's about the soul. The soul comprises the mind, the will, and the emotions. And that incorporates the whole being, and that incorporates the thoughts. So again, it's about the soul. And then the body. You have to take care of your temple. So we're going to be expanding that, and so bringing on different guests that can speak to those three different parts of who we are.
I'm looking forward to it, Dr. Des. I thank you so much for coming back, and I really have missed you, and our audience just doesn't really know what they're in store for. Some great things are coming from you.
Yeah, and I've missed being here. Thank you.
Any other lasting words before we close this segment out?
Remember, I want people to always remember it's never too late to start now. You can start right where you are to be in good health. It's never, ever too late, whether it's a matter of getting up, walking around the block. That'll help with your physical health. Watch what you eat, watch what you drink, take in lots of water, hydrate yourself. Your mind, again, stay away from negative people, negative conversation, watch your negative thoughts. Speak life. The power of life and death is in your tongue. And always, for your spirit, always focus on things that's going to bring you joy. Focus on things that's going to give you peace and tranquility and serenity. Let this mind be in you, which is also in Christ Jesus.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I love that. I want to thank you again.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for being with Smiles Television Talk Show. Remember, only what you do for Christ will last. And Jesus is the Lord. The Lord be magnified. Keep smiling.